Hello and thank you for tuning in to Embracing Budgets. My name is Rochelle, and in today's video, yes, as you saw by the title, guys, I'm finally going to explain to you today how I get a month ahead every year, okay? So now let me give you a little, just a couple of preferences of how I get a month ahead, okay? Now, I know that there are a lot of videos on how people get a month ahead. They do it by averaging out their bills and saving that money in cash. I don't do that. That is a way to do it, though. I will say that. However you get it done so that you can get a month ahead. But that's not how I do mine, okay? Secondly, also just want to let you know the best way for my particular method, because I get paid bi-weekly, this method is best if you get paid bi-weekly or weekly. Okay, so I've been doing this for years. I've actually learned how to do this method many years ago, but I only accomplished it within the last few years. Okay, so if you would like to see how I get a month ahead on every year on budgeting, on budgeting, please keep on watching. Okay, so the method that I use for me with my paychecks when I get them, the method that I use, quite simply put, is I use two paychecks a month to pay for my expenses, okay? But I get paid bi-weekly, okay? So 2 paychecks a month times 12 months a year is 24 checks. However, I get paid bi-weekly. 52 weeks a year, divide that in half, I get 26 checks a year. But I'm only using 2 checks a month for the year. 2 checks a month for the year. So 24 checks, but I get paid 26 checks. Those extra 2 checks is how I get a month ahead. Okay? So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you on the calendar what I do and how I balance out my checks. So let's start out with, first and foremost, the first thing I do every single year so that I could get everything down and make sure it makes sense is I get a calendar, okay? And I get one of those calendars, and this is a overall like planner it is, but I need the calendar where I can see the whole entire year as you see here, okay? Okay, so the first thing I do is I circle or highlight the dates that I get paid, okay? Or I just underline it and then go from there. Usually I underline it so that I can know which bills will be paying rent and which bills will be paying just bills, okay? Which paychecks will be paying rent and which paychecks will be paying bills, okay? So let's say that you get paid every other Friday, okay? And let's just say that this is your first time doing it. You're starting out fresh and, you're not a month ahead. You're like right on time to get everything paid just on time, okay? So let's say you get paid every other Friday, okay? So what I would do is I would just highlight or start off by underlining every other Friday for the full calendar year. So for January, let's just say you start off on the 5th, then the 19th, February 2nd through the 16th, March 1st, 15th, and 29th, okay? Let's see here, not on the 5th, but April 12th, 26th, May 10th, and 24th, June 7th and 21st, July 5th and 19th, August 2nd, 16th, and 30th, okay? That will bring September the 13th, that's my baby sister's birthday, September 13th and 27th.
Okay, October the 11th and the 25th, November 8th and 22nd, and then we got December 6th and December 20th, okay?
Okay. So now that you have all of the dates circled or underlined, okay? Then I would go in and I would highlight which dates would be the dates that I would pay my rent with, or the date that I would pay my expenses or bills with, other bills with. Now, when I say, let me give a little preference right here. When I say one is for rent and one is for expenses or bills or anything like that, I'm not saying that that's the only thing that, you know, that you guys would have, like, or that's it. Like, you know, you might be paying just your car note and your tuition, you know, or you might be paying, you know, your mortgage and your cell phone. You know, I just divide it up and I just put those labels on it just to give them a specific label to know which one is which, not just that, oh, that's all you will have is rent and bills. Like, not that. It's just how I label it, you know? Okay. So I'm going to put over here in the corner, the yellow will be for rent. And when I say rent, it might be rent and like, say, like 2 other bills, you know, not just for rent. Okay. And then blue will be for, I guess I would just say expenses. Okay. And please forgive my handwriting. I do not have the prettiest handwriting in the world, but it is what it is. Okay. All right. So usually for most people, rent is due on the 1st, but let's just say that you did not from the month before in December, because it's holiday time and everybody is busy with the holidays. With that, chances are your paycheck before that would have been on the 22nd. But that's a couple days before Christmas. Let's just say that you use that paycheck for expenses and you know, of course, you know, let's just say for Christmas, okay? So you're going to be a little late on paying your rent, but not necessarily late. You going out to the latest that you can pay your rent. I know with where I rent, they give you until the 5th to pay your rent. So if my rent was due for the 1st of the month, the latest I could pay is on the 15th. So this will be a rent check. And then, of course, then this will be my expenses, okay? But what I do, and I will say this, I do not vary off from the method of using just 2 paychecks a month, okay? So what I do is I don't break rotation, okay? So where I get that 3rd check, because like I said, I get on average, as you can see, we get 2 checks a month, but 2 of those months out of the year, I get the 3rd check, okay? So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to highlight my rent check. So rent expenses, rent expenses, rent expenses, rent. Now I'm just going to be a few days early, right? Expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent. Now I'm a full 2 weeks ahead of time on my rent. And this is my rent for September, not for August. Rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses. Now let's stop. Okay. Now that was rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, expenses, rent, and this is July rent, July expenses, August rent, August expenses, September rent, September expenses. We're still only 2 weeks ahead of time. October rent, October expenses, November rent, November expenses, December rent, December expenses, but we still got 2 more checks. And I know that went probably really fast. I'm going to slow it down. So this is January rent and expenses, February rent and expenses, March rent, we're paying right on time. March rent, March expenses, but we get paid for a third time in March. That's going to be April rent. The next check is going to be April expenses. May rent, May expenses, June rent. Now we're paying rent just earlier and earlier. Okay, so June rent, June expenses, July rent, July expenses, August rent. Now you're going to see it switch up because we get paid 3 times in August. August rent, August expenses, September rent, September expenses. Now you'll look at this and be like, oh my God, you're a month ahead. Actually, you're only 2 weeks ahead. Okay? Because rent is due on the 1st. You only got that rent check for September. You only got it 2 weeks ahead of time. So officially, you're not officially 1 month ahead just yet. Not just yet, but you're getting there, okay? So this is September rent, September expenses, October rent, October expenses, November rent, November expenses, December rent, December expenses. Did I say that right? October rent, October expenses, sorry. November rent, November expenses, December rent, December expenses, and now here we are in December. Before the full month is gone, you will have January rent and January expenses, and you will be 1 month ahead of time. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Wait a minute, girl. Hold up. It can't be that simple. It can't be that simple. I will say this. I have known this method for not for a very long time, but I've known this method for years. And the one thing about this particular method was making sure that that you stay on task with paying your bills in the cycle of 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I know that was a lot. The most difficult thing about keeping steadfast in this is knowing that by the end of the year, if you start at the beginning of the year, that knowing in 1 year's time, you will be 1 month ahead of time. And that's the most difficult thing, because once you get to a certain point, especially around this August time right here, where you have your rent check, or whatever in that time frame, when you get that check where you're like, oh, well, instead of me using this for rent, because I still get the one on the 30th, I could use that one for rent. I could pay that money, I could use that for this extra debt I have over here, or, paying off this or paying off that. I get it. I understand it. I did that so many times. And there's nothing wrong if you do that, if you so choose to do that. I will say, though, that if you choose to do that, and I'm talking to the people that probably are more like me, if you choose to do that, make sure that you pay it on a bill or a debt that you will not recreate. So many times over the years, I remember the last time I did it back in 2020, the beginning of 2020. I did it back then, and I recreated that debt. I paid off a credit card and I was like, good, that's done. Bam, bam, boom. I had that money back on that card by the end of the year, and it was so frustrating because by the end of the year, I could have been a month ahead. And that was my hard lesson when I was doing it, because I was like, I just don't want to pay this bill anymore. And I had that bill right back to pay. So, with that being said, I hope that it made sense to you guys, that I did it this way, that I put it in rotation. And I will say this, if it makes no sense on a calendar, one other method that I do is I pull out a little card or a sheet of paper, and I write down all those dates and put them next to what they're meant for. So if it's January 5th and the 19th, I put rent, and then I put expenses. Okay. Then I put February 2nd and 16th. And then I put March. And this is when it gets a little bit more difficult, but it makes sense. I put down March the 1st and then March the 15th. Then I put March. Oh, sorry. I put down, I'm sorry, correction. I put down January 5th. I put rent January. Expenses January. Then I put down rent February. Expenses February. Then March the 1st and the 15th, and also March, I'm sorry, me and my horrible handwriting. March the 29th. I put down rent March, expenses March. But then for March the 29th, I put down rent April. Okay. Then we have April the 12th and the 26th. That's expenses April. And then rent May. And so forth and so on. I don't know if you guys can see that because I was writing so much, but so forth and so on. Just so that it makes sense in my head that I'm only using 2 checks a month. Hi guys, this is Future Editing Rochelle here. I just want to show you guys that over in completion with it being more neater and better explained, okay? So I put the rent again in yellow, the expenses yet again in blue, okay? And every single month, I have each month written down individually, as you see here, and even over here, I have January and February written down, okay? So for rent, I will pay rent January 5th, and the expenses on January the 19th. In February, that comes from February 2nd, and then the 16th. But March, because we get the 3 checks, just to separate again, March comes from March 1st and from March the 15th. But April rent gets paid with March the 29th, and the expenses get paid with April 12th, and so forth and so on. And even when you go over to August, when you get paid 3 times in August, if you were to stay on track, when you get paid in August, they get paid, July, August, expenses will get paid on August the 2nd, but then September rent will be paid from August the 16th, and September expenses Did I say that right? September rent will get paid August the 16th, and September expenses will get paid from August the 30th check. Okay? Yet and still, like I said, in truth, you're not a full 30 days ahead at this point, not a full month ahead at this point, but it gets closer and closer to you getting a month ahead. And if you come over here, excuse me, I'm sorry. If you come over here, you'll see that from January, you get paid on December the 6th and the 20th. That will be for rent and expenses. And in February, now in February is when you truly get that full 1 month ahead, because February, you're getting paid a check on January the 3rd and January the 17th. And then, of course, come again in March when I saw for, and that's 2025, in 2025, that's when you get, in March, you would get 3 checks all over again. And that's when the cycle would continue, and you would just continue to rotate your checks, okay? I know sorry, got all this mess in the background. I know it probably sounds weird, but I promise you it all makes sense. Just rotate your paychecks and keep rotating your checks and keep saving them up like that. And over time, I will tell you guys my tips and tricks on how I don't get overwhelmed when it looks like there's too much money or not enough money sitting in my checking account. Okay? All right. Now, I know that there are certain circumstances like, some people might say, well, oh, usually when I get that extra check or that third check for the month, I use it for this reason or that reason. Like I said, there's so many different methods to get a month ahead. As long as you get a month ahead, that's all that matters. But I wanted to get out this different method of doing it, this different method of rotating your paychecks and keeping track, because it's just another way of showing that, guys, the money is there. The money is there. If you are a person to where you are surviving on, most of the time, the majority of the time, you're surviving on 2 checks a month. When you get that third check should go into savings. That third check should be put in rotation, or maybe not necessarily, because over here, you wouldn't necessarily put it in savings, but you would. For me, myself, I say don't put it in savings. I say keep it in rotation. Just keep it in rotation. That's that. Because every single time I tried another method, and mind you, it's just me. Every single time I tried another method of, put it in savings or whatever not, when I get 2 months ahead, that's when I put it in savings. Take that money, put it in savings, and make sure I at least keep 1 month that's active for the next month, if that makes sense, okay? Hi guys, Future Editing Rochelle here. I just want to clarify on one thing really quickly. Once you find yourself a month ahead, you actually do have 2 things that you can do, 2 options. You can stay in rotation like I said, or if you would prefer to have that money saved in the bank, you can take those paychecks and save them. On this chart right here, you see that you're going to be paying for January expenses come from December paychecks. You can take those 2 paychecks, put them inside your savings account, and have that money just sitting there so that you know that it's there, that you have that extra money saved, and just start the process all over again come January, okay? So I just want to let you know you do have options. You don't have to stay in rotation, okay? But yeah, this is how I get a month ahead. And I hope it makes sense, guys, because I had so many notes written down and so many ways to show you. And I explained it a lot better than when I even wrote it down. So hopefully you guys understood what I wrote down here, and just rotating your paychecks out. Like I said, if you're bi-weekly, you get 26 checks a year if you paid bi-weekly. Not if you're paid on the 1st and the 15th, semi-monthly, not if you're paid monthly, but if you're paid bi-weekly or weekly, Side note, if you're paid weekly, just like twice a year for my people that get paid bi-weekly, you get a third check a month. For my people that are paid weekly, there are 4 months out of the year where you get 5 checks a month instead of that average 4 checks a month. That 5th check, save it. Or, like I said, put it in rotation. Put it in rotation. It might be easier for if you get paid weekly for you to just take that whole entire paycheck and just put it aside. Or of course, like, if you need gas or groceries or anything like that, and the rest of it, put it in savings or something like that. But yeah, this is how I get a month ahead every single year. And guys, like I said, I've been doing it for a few years now, and I've accomplished it every single time. Like I said, the hardest thing was making sure that I did not deter from what I needed to do. And it was very, very hard knowing that I got this debt over here and I have this extra money here, and why don't I just take it and just waylay off? For me, that getting a month ahead was the most important thing, because for me, it did make me stress less knowing that I wasn't living immediate paycheck to paycheck. Okay, but that is it. That is all for this video. I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this made sense. Please, if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments. No, maybe I can explain it just a little bit better, or maybe next year I'll be redoing this video so that I can explain it just a little bit better for you guys. But this is how I do it. I make sure that I use 24 checks out of the year for my immediate bills and expenses and rent, and that check number 25 and check number 26, I make sure that's for that month ahead. Okay? I thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, stay blessed, stay beautiful, and remember to keep budgeting and saving. Bye.